Hi, welcome to what we are calling Classic Bookmark. When we started shooting these interviews in the spring of 1988, we had no idea the show would go on for 30 years, with over 400 episodes. To celebrate and mark this achievement, we have selected 15 shows. Choosing was difficult. Most of the writers chosen, like Horton Foote and Ray Bradbury, are deceased. Others, like Toni Morrison, the Nobel Prize winner, are perfectly well, but I do not think we will be lucky enough to have them on the show again. We purposely did not include some Bookmark favorites like Rick Bragg, Winston Groom, Sina Jeter Naslund, Brad Watson, Daniel Wallace, Michelle Richmond, and others, since we plan to visit with them regularly in the future. Viewers will notice that the technology has improved considerably in 30 years. We've cleaned these up the best we could. These first 30 years have been a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy watching these as much as I did making them.
All that stuff about write about what you know, I say baloney. Write about what comes into your head. And that's what I do. But there's something about Southern speech and the Southern sense of humor and the Holy Trinity of the South. Do you know the Holy Trinity of the South?
I think not.
The difference between what people think, what they say, and what they do. And I deal with the Holy Southern Trinity.
Truman Capote of Monroeville and Eugene Walter of Mobile went to the movies together as kids. Hi, I'm Don Noble. Eugene Walter is not as well known as Truman Capote, largely because he has spent more than 15 years of his life in Europe. But his novel, The Untidy Pilgrim, won the Lippincott Prize for Best First Novel, and his short story, Troubadour, has won an O. Henry Award for Best American Short Story. In this half hour, you'll meet Eugene Walter, who writes often of his mythical Mobile, which he calls Sweet Lunacy's county seat. Eugene Walter has had great successes with his Southern cookbooks, his poetry, and his fiction. But whether one is reading recipes in delectable dishes from Termite Hall, poems from The Pack Rat, or stories from his collection The Byzantine Riddle, one can always taste the flavor of Mobile.
Well, we've talked to a lot of Alabama authors who are not exactly Alabamians. They've come to the state or they've joined the state in their adulthood, but you are a native son.
Oh, Lord. Mobile, born and raised. In fact, born downtown. You know, like old Mobile.
Downtown is very specific, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
between where and where?
For me, it's east of Broad Street, which is like way downtown for most people nowadays. And my grandmother used to look out of the kitchen window, and Broad Street was 2 blocks away, and she'd say, out there is Broad Street and Wanaka's Tavern and Texas and the Pacific Ocean. And that was downtown. That was downtown point of view.
And you were raised in Mobile right through your elementary schooling and high school?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't go away other than a trip to North Carolina and to the World's Fair in 1936. I never left Mobile. Down in Mobile, they're all crazy because the Gulf Coast is the kingdom of monkeys, the land of clowns, ghosts, and musicians. And Mobile is Sweet Lunacy's county seat. I can tell you that's the truth. I know. You used to say you were never the same after living there, and I reckon I'm not either. A few years there done fixed me up which is what I want to tell you about. People have been saying of me, hasn't he changed? And my, he is certainly different. And the thing is, they're right, I have changed. But it's not some change you can point out with your finger and say, look at there, see what I mean. It's more subtle than that. And it occurred in strange degrees and lapses, quick and slow, long and short, noted and unheeded. I suppose it might be considered a change from country boy to somewhat cityfied boy if you honestly believe in those distinctions. Some people would say I've become civilized. Others would say I've gone to hell with myself. What is civilized, I ask you, and as far as that goes, what is going to hell?
Your childhood seems to have been a lot happier than two of your contemporaries' childhoods, which are very similar. One is Walker Percy and one is Truman Capote. They were, all three of you, more or less the same age, all raised in unconventional and scattered, if you like, households.
Well, I don't think my household was scattered. I think the creatures were scattered. The household was a constant. I think Walter Percy maybe was uprooted, and Truman's tragedy certainly was that he was yanked out of the South. I think I was fortunate to have an absolute continuity. So many of the people that I sat with were my grandmother's contemporaries. Some of them were ancient creatures, all with amusing stories. And my first history teacher, her father was a general at First Bull Run. So my first history lessons in 7th grade were quite wonderful. Columbus discovered America, George Washington cut down a cherry tree, and this Civil War broke out, which lasted 6 months, all the school year. Suddenly there was the League of Nations and May Day, and that was my history. But the Mobile in the Civil War was as real to me as Mobile is today, right now, this red hot minute.
You and Truman Capote were at least acquainted,
yes,
even when you were a teenager.
Oh, before that.
Before that.
We both belonged to what was called the Sunshine Club, there was a mad lady named Deza Stone, a remarkable creature who started a Sunshine page in the Mobile Register. And it was to encourage children to write. And you entered contests for writing and this and that. And I never entered a contest, but Truman wrote something called Old Mr. Busybody. And when his aunt heard that he'd written it, she stopped it quick because he was just about the next door neighbor. And he wanted so to win that pony. And years later we met in Paris. I hadn't seen him in something like 25 or 30 years. We met in Paris all those years later. He said, you know, I really wanted that pony. It was one of the first things he said. But then the other thing he said when I met him in Paris, he said, Eugene, what was the name of that film with the forest fire and the Indians shooting those arrows at the hero as he falls over the waterfall? And I said, that was George O'Brien in the Michigan Kid. Because that's, if you belong to the Sunshine Club, you got free matinees at the Sang at 11 in the morning. And that was the last time we met.
So you two went to the movies together when you were children?
As Sunshine Club members at the Lyric Theater.
Well, that should not be lost. At some point you got drafted and went to the Aleutian Islands?
I was in basic training in St. Louis, but first they kept me at Fort McPherson in Atlanta to register the illiterate backwoods boys. And I had run away and joined the Civilian Conservation Corps when I was very young, when my grandmother died, and when my guardian died. So anyway, I had dealt with these backwoods people, you see, and I liked them very much. They had a store of knowledge we don't have. They could look at a piece of woods and they'd say, well, yeah, a deer passed this morning. There are muskrats in there. And they'd look at the sky and say, it's going to rain 3 o'clock this afternoon. And they were wonderful. They had a rain guard. They'd say, come on down, Raymond. Because when it rained, the CC boys could stay in the barracks and play cards. Anyway, so I started in the Army registering those people. Because you see, like all Southern things, those poor Yankees that were trying to register them didn't understand that you don't say things like, what is your name, where are you from, date of birth. You say, "Oh, you're from Mississippi. Oh, what part of the southern? Oh, you got good hunting in there, yeah." And you get into it in the southern way. And so I stayed 3 months registering people. And then they gave out these sheets. They said, "You've won a big grade on your intelligence test, your IQ." I've never believed those IQ tests. I don't think they work. But anyway, they said you won a high thing, so you can go down this list and see if there's something you'd like to study. Because we have a shortage of all these things. And things was like chemical warfare, bomb making, radio, radar. And when I saw cryptography, I said, "Yay! Edgar Allan Poe, the gold bug. Keep it literary." So I became a cryptographer. And they said that we need cryptographers everywhere on Earth. And I said, "Well, don't send me to Europe. I have cousins in every European country, but I have no Japanese cousins. Let me fight them."
Shortly after military service in the Arctic Circle, Walter found himself in another exotic location, Paris. There he continues to write and serves as editor for the literary patroness Princess Capote, the woman to whom a group of American expatriates appeals when they need money for their new international literary magazine, the Paris Review.
She said, "Money I cannot give you, but I can give you Eugene." So in the first number of Paris Review, I had the story Troubadour.
Ah.
And then I did help to start it, but my name wasn't on it till the second number, but I helped to launch it and make subscription lists and read proofs and all that. And I'm still with it.
Right, your first novel, The Untidy Pilgrim, was written when you were living in France
I started
or
it
Italy?
I started it in New York. When I left for Paris, I entered it in a contest, the Lippincott contest. And I forgot about it totally, because I had not completed it. What I'd finished, I entered. And then one day I got this cablegram saying, "Well, you've won the Lippincott Fiction Prize. Congratulations." And I thought, how nice.
Your second novel, which you refer to as your French novel, Love You Good, See You Later.
Yes, there was.
Why do you refer to that as your French novel?
Because the French publisher who was interested in me because I was in Paris and because they'd published actually some short stories of mine translated into French. And he thought first of all that The Untidy Pilgrim could not be translated because of the verbal humor. And then he thought that it was perhaps a little too sweet for the French taste. And he said, "Why don't you write us a French novel?" So I said, "Of course, all you have to do is ask." I said, "Sign the contract, give me an advance, I'll do it. Send the car, take me to lunch, 3 martinis." And so I wrote Love You Good, See You Later, which came out first in French. It is my French novel. And then it came out in England, and then it came out in America.
Well, let's talk about its coming out in French first. When you wrote it in English.
Yeah.
But did you write it in a sense, in a kind of English that you knew would move more easily into French?
Good heavens, no. I
No.
write the way I write. I mean, I couldn't write any other way if I tried. I've tried to do tight-lipped psychological stories. It ain't in me.
Okay. Well, what made it easier to translate into French than The Untidy Pilgrim? Because it's the same idiom, it's the same
world,
region.
it's the other side of the bio.
Yes.
I think because it was shorter. The French like short novels. They don't like long novels, unless it's 6 volumes. I'm not quite ready to do my 6th volume yet. And also the idea that she was named Amélie, which is a French name, and that there's several mentions in it of somehow there's a slant to remind the reader that Mobile is a French city. And I think that the editors of René Juillard, who were the publishers, I think they liked that. And they liked the idea of the older woman having the young lover.
Walter's editorial duties for The Princess took him to Rome, where he found himself on both sides of the camera during the golden age of the Italian cinema. Well, your relationship with Fellini then expanded into a 20-year career with all of Italian movie making there for a spell.
Fellini needed someone to translate his scripts to send to American investors, producers, distributors. Well, in England, and also the English language goes for Germany and the Scandinavian countries. Because Italy being so small and money being so short, it needs international investment to do the size film he likes to do. So my job was to translate his scripts, explain things that were terribly Italian without seeming to explain. And then somehow I got into the Risi brothers, and then Zeffirelli, and then everybody. I translated about 500 Italian film scripts. And I loved it. Yeah. I loved it. It paid well. And I opened the windows and just threw the money out. I had a 17-room apartment on 2 floors, and I gave wonderful parties. And nobody had ever told me if you leave money in the bank, it takes interest. That's a field of knowledge unknown to me. So I'd rather give good parties and have party interest and be invited to parties for the next century when it comes.
Now, giving parties, especially large and elaborate parties, takes a lot of preparation and costs a lot of money. But you're on record many times as having talked about how that is not only worth it, but crucial.
Well, if you're Southern, the funeral feast, the Sunday school picnic, the lawn party, the wedding, you think in terms of chicken salad for 50. It's just as easy to do it for 50 as it is for 2. And if you don't have a lot of money, then you make a Ritz cracker pie. I mean, you know, really good dill pickles on a peanut butter sandwich are exotic to many people if the peanut butter is heated and the pickles are chilled. And it's not expense, it's imagination. I mean, those things don't cost money. It's just to give people one moment out of their dailiness. I combat dailiness.
Dailiness is the curse of the routine, the repetitive,
yes, and with
the mundane.
With our publications, with our TV and radio, we know what's going to happen. I mean, America, which was a pioneer country, didn't know whether the buffalo was coming to the living room or the Indians were going to scalp them all before evening. And now when all of that's conquered and taken care of, they're living these boring lives. I always think, what am I doing to combat dailiness when I get up every morning? So some days I feed the squirrels dates to see their reaction.
You had a wonderful time in Rome.
Yes.
And dailiness must be easier to combat in Rome than in America.
Very much. Although I must tell you, I saw the move from many worlds and the individualistic worlds toward the concentrated modern world. When I first went there were sheep driven through the streets every morning going to a park to graze, and mostly bicycles. When I left, there were bumper-to-bumper traffic jams.
Why did you leave Rome, where you were so happy, and come back to Mobile?
Little by little, the Rome that I knew and loved, because I was there 17 years, and I saw the last of old Rome and the beginning of a kind of new Rome, which I didn't really like. And then I was in a street fight. I had gone to get mushrooms at the mushroom shop up the block. And a policeman raising his billy club to conk a demonstrator knocked out my front tooth. And I thought, I wonder what it's like in Mobile. It must be so peaceful. So I started packing. It took 6 months, and I got here and unpacked, and Hurricane Frederick blew up the house and all my luggage.
How have you found Mobile? It must be much changed from when you left.
Well, I didn't recognize anything. And some of my exact contemporaries are ancient, decrepit, senile creatures. I find that I like more and more to be with younger and younger people.
One of the, sometimes reading through a writer's work, you see a particular strength or something that tickles you as a reader. One of the things that tickles me is your old ladies. Did you have a lot of old ladies in your childhood?
Well, the old men I knew were sour. The old ladies were humorous. I have stories about old gentlemen too. I just haven't published some of them. 3 ladies are sitting on a lawn. They've had tea, and they've fallen into a silence. And one of them says, were you at that party? And the sole dressmaker says, no, she wasn't there. And she says, she's heard so much about it. So the hostess, who is Mrs. Warden, begins to tell what happened at this party. She tells about how Bessie de Banfield, who gave the party, chose the club colors and this and that. Mrs. Warden overrode lustily. Just got some paint and painted every stick of lawn furniture yellow for the party. Blue linen cushions and tea cloths. Bessie has yellow coreopsis all along her drive, don't you see? And the shady wall of her house is covered with blue plumbago, so everything fitted in. She made everything blue and yellow, including Bessie herself, silk print. I made it, said Miss Grenier. It was ochre and teal. Everything went together, continued Mrs. Warden, everything. She went to Three Georges and had mints made in blue and yellow. Then she went to Smith's Bakery and ordered cupcakes made in two ways, yellow ones with blue icing and blue ones with yellow icing. They said, Mrs. de Banfield, it's been our experience that people won't touch blue cakes. It's just not an appetizing color. But Bessie's like a battering ram when she takes a notion, so she got what she wanted, and more besides, which is part of my tale. She's biggity, sniffed Miss Grenier. So then she made two punches, one colored with blueberries, much too sweet. Other was golden yellow, made of peaches and muscatel. She had a blue mayonnaise with yellow egg salad, and a bright yellow mayonnaise with slices of chicken dyed blue. Sounds ghastly, said Mrs. Cantwell. Nobody touched the blue meat, said Mrs. Warden. It just sat there looking disconsolate. Well, were the men there? Asked Miss Grenier. Well, you know, Tom gets them all out on the side porch with a bar wagon. They know by instinct when the ladies have been served and drift in afterwards to the buffet. They were out there laughing, I think, to tell dirty jokes. This year, Bessie asked all the members proper to come an hour early so we could get up a note to send the governor about the sterilization of criminals, which he proposed, which was coming up for a vote in the State House the day after the party. There's another thing they can do with men like that, said Miss Grenier thoughtfully. I heard about it. What do you mean, hon? Asked Mrs. Warden. Oh, yes, castrate, said Miss Grenier. It may be something Fidel Castro invented. You know, for criminals. Castrate them. Mrs. Cantwell looked generally pained. I hardly think, she murmured, and then turned gently to Miss Grenier. We'll have a little talk when you come over to do my linen suit. Mrs. Warden went right on. We were for rehabilitation, sent off our telegram to the legislature, and that was that. Then the party commenced. There were thousands of people, and since the paint wasn't quite dry on the furniture, most everybody stuck, or at least had their clothes ruined. Nobody would eat that blue breast of chicken. There was heaps. Bessie is very old-fashioned about hospitality and believes there's got to be enough to have tons left over afterwards. Her servants have come to loathe chicken salad. Melisande O'Rourke recited Amy Lowell's Patterns. Then Elsie DeFeo played the ritual dance of Fire and Girl with the flaxen hair. They were having the dessert, including those blue cupcakes, when it started. Tom de Banfield, prompted Mrs. Cantwell, was not drunk, just flushed like he gets. All the men had come around by then. We're having a big laugh over the blue food. Tom kept making jokes about ptomaine poisoning every time somebody bit into one of those cupcakes. Well, they all laughed, but lots of them left cupcakes with just one bite out. In the midst of all that hoo-ha, that little dog came running in and ran up to Bessie, who was holding court in the patio. She broke off a piece of her cupcake and gave it to him. And ladies, she paused for effect, looking at each lady in turn. He just plain dropped dead.
Walter has filled a house on Grand Boulevard with his art, books, and mementos, leaving barely enough room for himself and his 8 cats. After 29 years, the mobile to which he has returned is changed from the one he left, and, in his opinion, not for the better. He devotes much of his energy and time to the preservation of what's left of Old Mobile, but still reserves his early mornings for writing.
I'm putting the finishing touches on a novel that's been finished a long time, and I put it face down for 6 months. And 2 publishers have asked for books of memoirs, one in London and one in New York. And I'm trying to put together enough rough pages that I can get a contract in advance and a 3-martini lunch.
Well, the London publisher is not going to send his car, but he may send a check.
Well, he sent his chief editor to ask for the Byzantine riddle to Mobile.
It's Methuen?
Uh-huh.
That's
To
wonderful.
take me to a 3-martini lunch in Mobile and ask for that book of short stories.
How about this new novel? Can you say something about
It's
it?
called Adam's House Cat, and it's about a sensitive young lady. It's different from anything I've done before.
Mhm.
Sensitive young lady who marries a young man of unknown origins. So it's the he says, she says, 27 versions in Mobile.
It's in Mobile,
Where else?
of course.
If you see my house or my garage or any drawer or cupboard or attic that I have anything to do with, you will understand why this collection of my first 50 years of verse is called The Pack Rat. The Pack Rat, or when will he, she clean out that desk, attic, garage, closet, wardrobe, armoire? The pack rat packs 1,000 things, works all day, then home he brings an apple core, a mushroom spore, a semaphore, a birdcage door. The pack rat packs up extra piles of things he'll need in afterwhiles. A beetle's wing, a piece of string, a ding-a-ling, a nice tin ring. His friends offer advice. Throw out that stuff, they'll say. He won't heed it. Come right away, we'll help. Oh, nay, I really might just need it. When morning breaks, he's out and takes whereon he haps. Old Pepsi caps, torn highway maps, frayed scout tent flaps. What others throw away, he'll pack with joy into his ratty pack. He has a thought for all that's wrought, or made or bought, or scorned or sought. He says, exactly what I pack. When he's done with piling up all that, he starts anew on another tack. For a pack rat feels a tacky lack if he's not stacking up his pack.
There's no doubt, you're an Alabamian, you're a Southerner, you're a writer, you are by some kind of definition a Southern writer, and yet clearly your work with its humor stands in a kind of opposition to what we may think of as the Southern High Renaissance, the Southern Gothic of Faulkner, McCullers,
Well, you know,
Capote.
Since I was raised more or less European, since 3 grandparents were Europeans. The French-English grandmother was of a family that had been here since 1810 or something. But I guess I had like a perspective from the beginning. I absorbed it without knowing it. And I've known, in curious circumstances, I've known so many people from the backwoods. And whether it was backwoods come to town or whether it was backwoods in backwoods. And I finally realized I just couldn't take the gloom, doom Southern novel. Not for me. I just couldn't do gloom and doom on the old plantation, gloom and doom in the swamps, gloom and doom in the prison, gloom and doom at City Hall. I just couldn't do gloom and doom. I couldn't do it. I'm triple Sagittarius. I have a very healthy liver. I have never drunk cheap spirits. I have excellent digestion. I can't do gloom and doom. It's not in me.